All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jewyl Clarke. I'm the Integrated Curriculum Coordinator at the San Diego County Office of Education. For those of you who are, if you weren't hopping in when we were doing introductions, we're doing introductions in the chat feature. So feel free to share where you're coming from and what you're up to. If you have any questions along the way, you can also unmute yourself and break in. Or in Zoom, you can use a number of features in the participant section where you can raise your hand or ask for more, for me to go slower or faster, things like that. I do have this up on the resource, which I hope is potentially where you're starting to find some of these resources that I've been putting together, our CTE distance site. So if you go there, the video from my webinar on Friday is there, as well as the slides. And I have added the slides today, but let me just go ahead and copy that and add it into the chat so that you can easily follow along. But I'll try to always keep everything I can on our main distance learning resources page that I've been trying to curate. In addition to what I put together, I have put together a separate page here that's sector specific, and I cannot be an expert on all 15 sectors at once. So if you have expertise in any sector, this is actually open for editing and anyone can add. So I saw some different people in here who are teachers in different sectors. If you have resources you'd love to share, we would love to have your assistance in curating those. But today we're talking about a little bit about lesson planning, and so let's go ahead and get started. And again, I dropped the link to this slides in the group chat, and it's also available on our distance learning resources page. So I know I also used this slide on Friday on my webinar, and I'll probably come back to it each time, but just so that everyone is on the same page with what the CDE is talking about when they say distance learning. And distance learning is this instruction where the student and instructor are in different locations. And we kind of see this whole continuum of what distance learning can be. It's anywhere from, the high watermark is that teachers are interacting with their students, they're providing assistance, there's an online learning platform, there's engaging activities that students go through and a way to assess their learning. And then as you kind of go through that continuum, you have online curriculum that students might be working on at home. Perhaps if we got back to a point where we were not maybe going to school, but we were able to open up labs, then we might see this third one in play. But at this point, we don't see that in California. And then, ultimately, if we cannot have access for students in any other way, sending home paper packets of instructional materials is also an option. So, and the CDE has, made it clear that we shouldn't let perfection be the enemy of good in this. And so really get in here wherever you can, start to develop things. And hopefully there's a few tools here that will help you along the way. And again, I talked about this on Friday, but as you get into this lesson plan, think about what is the scope of learning? And this is going to be different for every organization. Each district, each LEA is going to be coming up with what they are asking of students and of teachers. And so understand, what that looks like. Is this required instruction, or is this enrichment, which is optional assignments for your students? Understanding the technology available to your students between the hardware and the software. And then how much time will students spend on your class each day or week? Normally they might spend a full, 50 minutes with you every single day. And when you look at them spending time at home, they may have more barriers than they would in a school day. And if you can imagine how many hours you're spending in front of a Zoom right now, if you had to put that into a student perspective, imagining them sitting through 6 Zoom classes a day is probably not realistic for them to really engage in the educational practice. So really thinking about how you can diversify learning, give some flexibility, and understand you may not have the full 5 hours a week of your students' attention. They may only have 3 computers for 5 to 6 family members. They may have limited bandwidth. And so just also keeping that in mind. And also, what's your capacity? If this is your first time doing any kind of digital learning, then it's really important for you to know it's okay to not completely replicate what you would have done in the classroom. We are here to ensure our students are prepared for next year, ensure our students have as much learning as we can provide for them, but also that at the foundation of it all, that we're all safe, and that we are all able to stay well. And so don't overdo it for yourself either. Also, just remember, right now you might be in enrichment, but should the message change from the governor or from your district, you may end up really needing to provide required instruction of students. So keep an ear out to what's happening from your district and from your county and from the state, as those are changing daily. All right, so I am also trying to put these together in as rapid of a way as possible. And so you may have really great ways to add to this, so feel free to chime in if you do. But when I think about lesson planning in this particular case, I think there are a few things that help kind of give us the big idea. So the first thing is, what are the non-negotiable learning outcomes, right? We have to look at it and really realize that it's unlikely we're going to hit every learning outcome that we would have normally had in the year. So start thinking about, what do students need to know in order to be successful in the next course, and what's feasible for online instruction. And so this might look a little bit different, especially in CTE, where you are, doing everything from evaluating knife skills to changing the oil in a car. A lot of these things may not be feasible to do in an online world, but it doesn't mean that we can't give our students alternative high quality options along the way. The other thing is to consider the assets students have at home. So of course you probably have an idea of what's provided by the school, what computer technology they have and what software, but also most students do have a textbook at home, so that may be an asset that you can use, particularly for students who have a little bit limited use of technology. But I think it's really important to also think about the assets our students have around the house. I was trying to just brainstorm ideas, and I thought, oh, what like an interesting, as I'm going through my own refrigerator and saying, okay, what are the 5 ingredients I need to put in this meal? Is there a way with culinary programs to give students challenges, 5-ingredient challenge? What are the most perishable things and how can you prepare them for your family? So there are some things that you might find around the house that are different, than you might even have in the classroom. And so it's an opportunity to change the way we learn, and think a little bit differently about what students have access to at home. Another really important thing to consider is the additional support needed by some of our students. And so I do have a couple of slides that have what basically the CDE is recommending around supporting our students with special needs. But you hopefully know your students the best. Keep in mind your students who have IEP anywhere that it's possible. If you can support them by giving them extra time on any kind of assignments and tests, things like that, offering extra office hours to support those students, that is a really great way to ensure that we have as much equity as we can when we know we can't have one-on-one support for our students in their home the way that they might have in the classroom. So any questions at this point as I work my way through these slides? All right, great. So this actually came straight from one of the appendices. The CDE is putting together a lot of documentation and frameworks for online learning. And so I put this in here as another resource, that I also don't want you to feel overwhelmed, because a lot of this, in expository instruction, these might not be terminology that we tend to use all the time, but how do we give students knowledge, right? How do we have them actively have some kind of opportunity to engage with their information, build skills and things like that through active learning and interactive learning? And we can do that with different digital options. And so you can see here, this is just a screenshot from the CTE. If you have the slides open, which again, those slides are in the group chat and on the website that I listed earlier, then you can click on this and it'll go to the website where it has a lot more information. But just thinking about this balance between synchronous, which means we're all in it together, just like you and I, we're in this Zoom right now, this is synchronous. Usually that can be a lot more interactive. Whereas asynchronous is that I might have some activities and you're going to do them on your own time flexibly, right? So if you look here, giving students information might be, you know, a webcast of a lecture or something like that. Maybe you can actually do, there's a lot of like fake little, not fake, but digital whiteboards, and you could be working through calculations or something along that line. You can annotate some kind of diagram. And so sometimes these can be done at the same time as your students are online, and sometimes you can provide them something that they could do asynchronously. So that's when you're all can just log in online at any time and participate. So you can kind of dive deeper in this if you'd like, but I'm going to go ahead and move on because the real question that I'll probably come back to as we go, as we get into online instruction, it's a whole different ballgame as far as engagement. How do you get students to do meaningful work when you are as connected to your students as I am to you right now? It would be very easy for your students to kind of fake that they're in your Zoom call. There's a lot of going around about students, you know, figuring out how to cheat this online system. And so at the end of the day, helping your students see the value of what they're doing is one of the most important things. And we know in CTE that there's intrinsic value because it's about their future and their career. And so anywhere that you have something that they're building that might have a public face, that might work for their portfolio, that works towards certification, that's really going to increase the value of learning for your students. And so consider that along the way. So we're going to talk a little bit about lesson planning, and I'm also going to dive into CTE Online a little because I think that's a really important resource as we get into distance learning. And so you might also think about the Standards for Career Ready practice as a piece of the puzzle. It's not just about your model curriculum standards, but the Standards for Career Ready practice are also a good resource for this. So, so the big idea, first, brainstorm and collect resources related to each of those non-negotiable learning outcomes. So if you're talking about a particular subject area, maybe one area that came to light today, I was looking at some resources and it was around lighting. And so it was lighting technology. So if you're thinking about, all right, well, what's the environmental implications of like building and construction trades and the lighting and the electrical and all of these things, right? So you might start to build this pile of resources that's related to those. That might be things like digital curriculum. So we'll look at some resources for that right now. But also, where do you go to find information right now? Videos, YouTube, Vimeo. You also may find some things on industry organization websites. So we're also reaching out to some of the different unions in our region, some of the organizations that have apprenticeships and things like that, to see what kinds of online training modules they might make available. We are seeing some go ahead and make those available, and as we find them, then we'll be putting them into our website. But you may find great videos that are provided by some of those organizations already. Data visualizations and infographics. Have your students come up with, take data and make it very visualizable. There's a lot of great resources to do that. Find articles that support that learning outcome. Look for a simulation. That's going to be a really great resource in CTE, depending on what technologies you needed to interact with that simulation. Any other multimedia resources, and so that might be like diagrams and things like that. You may also find blogs, podcasts, video podcasts. These are the way that we learn as adults, and so it's actually a really exciting time to help our students become lifelong learners as they explore resources that we might not have given them when we were in the classroom. And then also websites. So as you're thinking about whatever your learning outcome is, and you get this big list of ideas of things that go with that, the place that you're going to have to spend your extra time is just where that information is not easily available online. So for instance, I taught medical chemistry when I was in the classroom, and I, would sometimes find great resources on Khan Academy, or I'd find them online. But in general, a lot of the chemistry flipped kind of lessons that were online were at the university level. And so I found myself doing a lot of things where I screencast my own lectures over a PowerPoint in order to flip my class. But that was at a time when I was doing asynchronous flipping, which means that they'd go home and they'd watch a video that I made and kind of fill out a worksheet to go with it. And so now you may be able to do some of that in person, just like I'm doing right now with Zoom. But really, you don't want to feel so overwhelmed, because there already are so many resources that are going to support the learning outcomes that you're looking for. So make a list of those first, find the gaps. That's where you might need to make some of your own instructional materials. Anyone in the group have any other pieces that you think I'm missing off of this list around just kind of components that might fit into an online lesson plan? Right, we're quiet today, but feel free to raise your hand or break in if you have any suggestions. And again, this bit.ly CTE distance here at the bottom will have the link to these slides. All right, so what I want to do before we get into how to put these together is make sure that you're familiar with CTE Online. So CTE Online is a website that's funded by the California Department of Education to support CTE teachers across, and not just CTE teachers, but also linked learning. A lot of integrated projects are on CTE Online. Hopefully most of you have been in CTE Online before. But I wanted to, this is my login. I have my little picture, and you do have to sign in order to really access the materials. But if I go in here and I look up something in lesson plans, I can kind of unclick outlines, because I'm not worried about building a course right now. But if you are, this is a great place to get that information. And maybe I want to look at lesson plans and projects, and let's see who we have here. We have a lot of coordinators and direction, but we do have a culinary arts teacher who, thank you, Terry, for joining us. So we'll pick you. Actually, I don't need to put this up here. What I can actually do is I can scroll down, and I'm going to want to pick, I think that's under hospitality and tourism, and we're going to search. And I could put culinary if I wanted, but what I see is there's 275 different lesson plans or projects just for culinary arts in here. Now, this has a lot of recipes, it looks like, but let's see what this stocks, the foundation of the kitchen. So this already outlines a lot of pieces, and it actually talks through things that might help you turn this into something visual. Here's an assessment that's already made. So you might be able to pull something like this together and then have your students at home participate in creating something like this, right? And it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but if I, was a student at home, we might cook any kind of meat on a bone. And so then it's like, okay, sometime in the next few weeks, when you have meat on the bone, here is a activity that you can do and you can show. So you may be able to come up with kind of like a playlist of options, of which this might be one of them. I actually emailed CTE Online this morning to see if we could get a filter that said appropriate for distance learning. So fingers crossed if that works out. So as I go through here, we might, here's some kind of activity on the history of food trucks. This would be really interesting for your students to go through. There's a LinkedIn post here, and I didn't even preview these, but as you go through CTE Online, what you'll see is here are digital resources that someone has uploaded. What that means is that you can use those to upload into your LMS or link students to them. And so you're not having to recreate the wheel as you go. Here, someone already has created a PowerPoint on food truck history and thinking about all of these. So here you could have a whole lesson on food truck history, understanding food trucks and how they are fitting a certain niche in our what culinary scene, and then maybe students have to develop their own food truck menu, and think about, you know, how many things could you make if you had this many, this much space and this much equipment. So take some inspiration from these. Here's even a group project that is affiliated with this particular piece. So the reason I feel like CTE Online is a great resource is the fact that it already has things that are in digital format, and many of the activities could be done by students from home instead of in class. Of course, not everything is made for distance learning, but I also want to encourage you to know that you're not going to have to make everything from scratch. There are tons of digital resources out here. CTE Online is a free resource. You can download all of these resources here and give it to your students. There's even a quiz here using Kahoot. So they've already created a quiz. I'm really excited to see that in here because this is a good example of a way for you to work with students. I even mention it later in the slides. So here's a little quiz. And as a teacher, you can actually make a copy of this so you can see, but you can have students go through and you know, answer all of these questions. And so this would be for you to go in, make a copy and set this up, but here are the answers for you already ready to go. And so as you are trying to put together your lesson plans, consider some of these digital resources that already exist. All right, at this point, does anyone have any questions or comments? I don't see anyone's microphone turning green, so no one's trying to talk even though they're muted. All right. So what I would suggest now, if you kind of go back, if we go back to this idea where we have this kind of brainstorm of ideas. All right, here's my learning outcome. Here are a bunch of ideas that go with it. I found a couple of activities from CTE Online that work. Here's some videos from YouTube. I'm going to have them make an infographic about this over here. I want to, you know, oh, this great simulation occurred, I love, or I listened to this podcast. So now you have this big pile of things for students to do, but it's really important to organize that. And so what I have here is this idea that you might consider just doing a weekly playlist. So organize it by a week so that students kind of can bite off and chew things a little bit of a time as they get through into their learning playlist. And kids love a playlist, right? So why not call it a playlist even? Here's your learning playlist for the week. But having some things that have deadlines during the week, but a lot of flexibility so that some students who may have different access to technology or maybe have to share with a sibling or even have to kind of watch a sibling because just like we're working, a lot of parents are working. And so you might have an older sibling who's kind of trying to manage the younger sibling during the day. And so they may just not have the ability to sit in front of a computer all day long. But you do need to think about what accountability looks like. Right now, because a lot of schools are in what we're calling the enrichment phase, there may not be accountability. Maybe you're not planning to grade anything, but it would be nice for you to at least be able to give feedback to students or help them build something that might fit well on their portfolio. But what will accountability look like? How will you grade their work? It's really important to be clear to students so that they understand the repercussions of not doing the work, but also the value of the work itself. Just like in the classroom, routines are an amazing way to keep students engaged in learning. And so as you go through, that routine might look like every week you have similar activities versus every day. And then ultimately, how will you assess their learning? So accountability is one thing that might be kind of like what's turned in on any given day or some of that formative assessment to see where they are and if they're growing in their learning. But ultimately, what does their summative assessment look like? And how do you work towards that is an important piece of the puzzle. So what I did is I made like an example. Here's an example weekly routine. Maybe on Monday, you host a virtual class. So just like this, you've got everyone in there, you're gonna talk to each other. hey, let's talk about this week. Here's the objectives. I'm going to give you an intro to the topic, just like you might introduce a unit. But instead of a unit taking 3 or 4 weeks, one of the things that the CDE is really recommending is you kind of chunk information so that it's a little bit more manageable. So this is why I'm recommending kind of a weekly playlist or a weekly set of expectations for our students so that they kind of feel like, okay, from A to B, here's what I need to do. So I'd say maybe Monday you introduce the class, you go over objectives, answer questions, and that kind of a thing. You might on Tuesday not have any face-to-face with your students. You've given them a playlist. They're going to get into the resources. They're going to listen to that podcast, watch the video, complete some kind of reflection or proposal or response. Maybe you use something like Flipgrid, which is an incredible ed tech tool where you pose some kind of question and they have to make a little video response using their own phone or Chromebook or anything with a video capability that can log into Google, and they'll make a little video response. And so that's a really fun way to do it. And any day that you're not actually working with students, host office hours. So it doesn't have to be all day long, but maybe just say, you know, between 1 and 2, you can email me and I'll be happy to email you right away. Or you might even open up a Zoom and just send out the link and say, pop in anytime. And so that's something that you can do while your students are working independently on a certain day. Perhaps then on Wednesday, you have the students do some collaborative activities. So you could have a message board. So that might mean that you don't all have to be online at the same time, but you say, okay, by the end of the day, you need to post a post, and then the next day you have to respond to another post, right? So those are often available in your LMS or your learning management system. Those are programs like Canvas, if you're using Canvas, or PowerSchool Learning, which used to be, oh, my mind has lost it, but there's a lot of learning management systems out there, Google Classroom. And so using a message board is one way to do that. In Zoom, you can actually host breakout rooms. So like right now, I could start a breakout room and put you into small groups of 3 or 4 and ask you to talk about a certain question, and then I could pop into any of those groups and check in. So you can do some of those things. You could use Padlet to put up kind of another kind of message board where students can, you can have questions and students can write responses. There's a lot of great educational technology tools. Don't overwhelm yourself and learn them all at once. You know, try 1 or 2 new ones every week, and then maybe by the end you use it a lot. Or maybe you just say, I love Flipgrid, and every week we're going to have a Flipgrid. That's a routine. Once your students do it once, now they're really comfortable. And I'll just say, with the current way that students just love TikTok, Flipgrid is little mini videos. And so they are really into mini videos right now, in general, all of our students. And so Flipgrid's kind of a fun way to mimic TikTok, but have it closed off with your students in the classroom. And so you can either give them a TikTok style challenge if you want to really spike their engagement. Maybe on Thursday, another day where you're not particularly synchronous with your students, but you've given them something to do like an online simulation activity, or it's a great time to apply their learning through a video or infographic. And again, any day that you are not actively synchronous with your students, you should have office hours available for students to log on, work with you on whatever it is that you've assigned, or just ask questions in general. Perhaps Friday, you know, along the way, you could be working on a bigger project. It could be a project work time. This is a great time to have a deadline for submitting work, host your office hours. Whether it's Friday or another day in the week, you may just want to schedule a time to check in with any of your students. This could be students with an IEP, students who have language barriers, or just students who are struggling. If you have students who maybe aren't online or aren't engaging regularly, you know, it's hard because you have, you know, 150 to 175 students. Totally get it. But if you can start to kind of write down the couple of students who seem to be less engaged and then reach out to them to have, you know, a one-on-one Zoom or email them specifically, or even, you know, reach out to their family and make a home call, then that would be a great way to do that. If it's overwhelming to do it all on Friday, you could say, your goal is to connect with at least 5 students every day, and think about, a student who's excelling and a couple of students who you just want to make sure are extra supported. So it's really important to include that. Now, I have to say that I just made this today. I'm sure there are way better lesson planning templates out there. But this is just something that I thought could be helpful for those of you who are new to distance learning, who are just a little bit overwhelmed with this idea. So here you can just make a copy of what I had. This could be just for your planning, but if you don't have a learning management system, you could actually just take this document and email it out to all of your parents and students, and say, here's what we're doing this week. And so that's really up to you and what kind of technology interface that your district or site has. And so here you can put which week and what the course is. And then again, everything we do should be tied to learning objectives. Your learning objectives are going to be something out of your model curriculum standards, out of the standards for career ready practice. It could be a specific skill from industry that you want them to learn. It doesn't have to be like the exact language from the standards, but this is, just really think about, if I only had, a month of classes with my students, what would I really want them to walk away knowing, and start there when you're talking about learning objectives. And then think about what materials and resources that they're going to need, so that you're really mindful that all of your students have access to everything in here. Every day, you can put, okay, what's due this day? What are my objectives today for learning? And then you can kind of just add, even in here, if you push tab, you'll get more rows. So if there's, okay, first you're going to read this article, then you're going to complete this reflection, and I'm hoping that you might start writing your own article that is similar or a response to that, right? So you can actually go through here and add different assignments as you would like. So if this is helpful, feel free to utilize this, or just mimic it in your idea of, okay, here's my playlist, Monday, here's what's on track. But again, we want to be really clear. What is a student expected to do with this information, right? So here's the activity, here's any links or resources, here's what you're going to turn in and when you're going to turn it in, right? Just like right now, we're kind of fearful as educators, like, what's expected of me? I don't know when I need to have a lesson plan up. I don't know what I can expect from my students, right? We feel a bit of angst because there's a lot of unknown. The more we can give our students clarity on exactly what we want from them, the more comfortable they're going to feel trying to learn in this new environment. And so just create rubrics if you along the way, so that you can clarify what you want from them. Make sure you tell them, hey, this is going to be due on Friday, along with a few other things. So, make your way through all these things. And then, it's going to be worth this amount of your grade if you can conceptualize that in advance. That's really going to help your students. So this just has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you can just rinse and repeat. If you are a district leader and you want to just make a copy of this and create a template that would work for your district and your students, that would be fantastic. Feel free to adjust it, share this, change it to fit your own needs, and share that. If you come up with something amazing, I would love for you to share it with me, so that I can also put additional resources like this out for our districts. Any questions? I see a few comments in here that this idea feels comfortable for people, so I'm really glad to hear that. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, or also if you come across other resources, I know that's the current fire hose, right? Resources are coming at everyone like crazy. I am part of that, right? If you look at this distance learning resources website that I've been putting together, if you haven't seen it yet, this at CTE Distance, and it's accessible also through the SDCOE COVID-19 response page. But as you go through, right, webinar after webinar, here's more webinars from outside organizations, here's student opportunities, here's there's a million resources, and then there's other ones, they're only free for right now. It's overwhelming, and we're all trying to deal with this fire hose of information. And so the more that we can just hone in and make a brainstorm idea of what supports this learning outcome, and then start organizing it into this weekly routine, the more comfortable we're going to be, the less confusion our students are going to encounter. And I'll also say, your students are amazing. You might be able to have them help you curate these materials. One assignment might be, come up with, everybody submit 10 ideas that we could explore in the coming weeks. And then you pick from that, right? And so feel free to help your students co-curate with you as you build these out. Your students are also going to have a lot more engagement when they see something that they are particularly excited about, or that they suggested themselves. These next two slides are I just took them straight from, there was a remote learning resource document that I found for the State Board of Ed, and it turns out it's the same language that's on one of the CTE sites. So this idea of accessibility, first of all, you always want to be working with your district office in order to know how you should best support your students who have IEPs or 504s. Make sure that you do know which students those are also. Look through your list. You were sent those at the beginning of the year. If you feel like you don't have access to that list, contact your district. They will make sure that you know which of your students have IEPs or 504s. I know with 170 students, sometimes it's hard to keep straight who has what, but we do want to make sure that we're making everything accessible. So inside of your learning management system, you'll have things like heading styles. Basically, if a screen reader needs to read the screen, the more we're using things like heading styles, the better. And so if you go, like if I look at my distance learning resources here, what you'll see is like this part right here is heading 3. So that means that an e-reader can know where each chunk of my page is because of the way I've even labeled that piece of my document. So there are some things about why we use headings instead of just making something bigger or smaller that are actually for accessibility. So if you look through here, using font and size are helpful. Anytime you upload an image, it'll have an option for what's called alt text. And that's just a place where you describe it. So if I was to put up a picture of myself and my dog, I would say Jewyl and her dog in the park, right? Keeping good distance from other people, obviously. But as we help to make sure our students can access things, then these are great guidelines. Additionally, things like anytime that there is video or audio, please provide transcripts. A really great way to do this is actually you can upload any video to YouTube. YouTube will automatically add transcripts. Unfortunately, they don't do the punctuation and capitalization as needed. Apologies for the dump truck that's going through my background right now, if you can hear that. But as you have, if you upload into YouTube, it will automatically create a transcript. And so that is one way to increase accessibility to your videos if you are making videos. Make sure closed captioning is available. Most videos on the web now do have closed captioning, and YouTube does that automatically, as I said. And also, again, like when you're making a link, instead of like read more, you could say, in order to learn more about blank topic, you can click here. So if you have descriptors instead of just a click, that's helpful. So these are all just accessibility recommendations for you. CTE Online is not the only resource that you could use. And so this is an early list of curriculum resources. CTE Online is my favorite. UCCI, if you haven't visited UCCI, it's a game changer, particularly for your core academic teachers who are interested in connecting to career. There's a couple of local projects in San Diego, careeracademics.org and hasp.org, that are have some contextualized curriculum for high school programs and middle school programs. The community college also has a ton of resources, particularly on their what used to be the deputy sector navigator, but now are called regional director websites. So, you know, like if you go to this transportation website, they actually have, which I know transportation is one of the ones that were like, how do you teach auto without a car? If you go into faculty on this website, there actually is curriculum options here. There are things, Green Academy curriculum here. And so a lot of these may be very much able to be used from wherever your students are. So take advantage of those resources. You'll also find those in my distance learning resources page here. So again, when you have all the time in the world, you can dig through this. I'm also trying to cross-link anything that is specific to a discipline onto this sector-specific resources. And anybody can edit this page, this one here. The other one we link straight from our website, so I'm curating, and I would love for you to share additional resources. But this one, anyone can edit. So again, if you, and I'm gonna copy that and put this in here so that you can find it very easily. That's in the chat now. But as you go through here, whatever your discipline is, I know I found a bunch of things for building and construction trades. The unions are fantastic and have put out these education resources. If you're not familiar with the Energy Innovation Center in San Diego, they actually have a ton of webinars that are going online. And so these are great things. You can have your students even log in and participate. Oh no, what do you mean you need permissions? Thank you for telling me that. I will, and I have some people who are in here ran for whatever reason. So I guess everyone can now see, where's my, not advanced. Anyone should be able to edit. Yep, advanced. Oh, here we go, change. Anyone with the link. Thank you for letting me know. Refresh, and hopefully you should have permission to get in. I think some of our local CTE folks have that area, but hopefully you go ahead and refresh and let me know if you can't get in. But I'd love for you, okay, thank you. I would love for you to share your favorite resources in here, not just resources, but a brainstorm around any given idea, activity that you find that you think will be helpful. In the coming weeks, one of the things that I've had on my mind is potentially to have some kind of virtual meetups for each sector where any teacher from that sector could come. We could even look at this and fill things in. People could share resources. And so I would love to, you know, if there's interest in that, I'd love to host anything like that. Let me see what, and I had someone asked about accessing any resources. As far as I'm concerned, all of my resources are Creative Commons. So don't go and make all the money off of it, but you are welcome to share anything I have with parents, teachers, students. You can make a copy and adjust it. You know, I'm paid by the state to do this work for you. And so making it into whatever works for your organization is what I'm here for. So, all right, I think that is it. I know I just jammed through this, but we have a little extra time if anyone has questions or comments, speak up. Right. Right. Well, it's fairly quiet out there, so hopefully that means that you got most of what you need, and I'm glad that people are really interested in here. Yeah.
Well, Amos. Hi, this is Amos Nugent in Sacramento. I'll speak up. First of all, I want to say thank you for organizing this and putting this together.
Absolutely.
For us here up in Northern California, we definitely are looking to do the best we can. We had some things, and then this was shared with me, so I'm like, this is great. And so no need to reinvent the wheel. I know with back in the month of February, there was the Educating for Careers conference and how that happens annually. And so, you know, beyond that, I know the state looks to do a couple different things to support CTE, more broadly, but I think, for us here locally, one thing we were trying to do in coordination with our county office, San Joaquin County, was on the 30th, which of course was canceled, has since been canceled, but doing an opportunity for our teachers to kind of collaborate around the CTE model standards for certain specific industry sectors. So I just bring that up because I think that collaboration more broadly around the state with teachers in specific sectors, I think that'll be something that'll be very beneficial. And so I know in looking at sharing that either with our teachers, all of them, or some of the leads that we're going to be establishing, I can say with a good amount of certainty that they would love to take advantage of something like that. So just thank you for the leadership in this, and even how we up here in Northern California are able to benefit from some of this work.
You bet. Hey, I grew up in NorCal, so
Okay.
up by Yosemite. So
Okay. Perfect.
my family's in the Sacramento area now, and
Yeah.
it's always great to support everyone up and down the state, particularly with all the distance learning. It's really exciting because we can have PLCs that are statewide. We have so many teachers in CTE that are singletons in their district, even not just at their site. And so if this opens up an opportunity to build a broader network and continue that work, that would be kind of a dream, I think, for what we do. And so, as hard as it is to manage the shifts in instruction that are happening right now, hopefully there are some things that will come out of it and improve our ability to work with students in this way.
Perfect. And last thing I'll say is that's actually where I'm from originally, Sacramento. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So cool.
Thanks. Right. Anyone else have any questions, comments, additions? Okay.
Hi.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I don't even know for sure if my microphone's going to work, so I'm going to try the best I can.
It's working.
Okay, fabulous. So I'm Stacy Michelle. I'm actually a theater teacher, and I was a little nervous coming into this because I saw that everybody else was coordinating kind of at the district level, majority of us at least. So I was like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be the right training for me, but I just wanted to let you know that I feel really empowered, and I'm actually really excited about sharing it with my colleagues in the district who teach the same subject as me, as well as other CTE teachers. I think it's a really, this whole layout and the PowerPoint that you've provided and that you've recorded now is really an exceptionally clear guide to using all the resources that are available. And it's just like you're saying, we're getting hit with so many suggestions of like places we can go and whatever. And especially in the world of CTE, where so often we feel like we're kind of forging our own pathways anyway, because we are islands at our own schools. We're the only teacher who teaches it maybe in the entire district. Yeah. It's really awesome to feel connected to these resources, and I do think that they're laid out in a really like logical and approachable way. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I would just say, like, make sure that other teachers also have access to this video. I can't wait to share it with my own colleagues, but this was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And you can actually, so right here, I'm guessing most of you found it on this page. The video, I did another one just that was more general career readiness, because I also think that your first week with students, if you're all trying to figure out the interface, that might be a great place to start. But we talked about that on Friday. So that video is right here, and it links to YouTube, and the slide deck is here. The slides from today are right here, and tonight or tomorrow, I will get that video up as well. So feel free to share everything. The more people that we can bring together, the better off everyone will be, and that our students, I just want people to know our students can continue to learn, just like you are learning digitally, they can learn digitally. But again, a lot of times it's what is the value that they're going to get out of that learning. And so the more that we can really be thoughtful about giving students an opportunity to create things that are meaningful to them, the more that they will engage from a distance. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, or for joining me. And hopefully I will see you again. If you have any recommendations about what you would like to hear more from me about, feel free to shoot me an email, because I'm kind of just deciding daily on what I might build. This Thursday, I have the a webinar that's career ready from a distance, but this is kind of across grade levels. So you can stop in on Thursday morning, and this is in another kind of platform from our whole county office. And so that doesn't have that register now, but you can link to it directly from here. And then next week, I am toying with doing one on just California Career Zone and how to use that digitally. They have some additional resources they're planning to release tomorrow or Thursday. So keep an eye out, and I will keep updating my schedule. So, all right, thanks again, everyone. And good luck, stay safe, wash your hands a lot, and we'll see you again soon.